This is your 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. America Free Radio will begin in 2 minutes. We're waiting for the other streams to pick up. Looks like Twitch and Twitter and Facebook. YouTube are on. We're waiting for DLive to connect. Should connect any moment. And our chat room is beginning to fill up already. Welcome, Jay Scott, Tony M. In the stream in about 30 seconds.
Other than Indeed for your hiring.
You must unite with citizen.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
First hour. Here we go. And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. So glad you could be here with us this Sunday night. We are live every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 p.m. We are streaming live from the America Free Radio studios through Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we are not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. We're also streaming live on Twitch, Facebook, DLive, Twitter, and YouTube. And we're waiting for DLive to pick up the feed. Should be any moment. We'll probably hear an echo when they do. Welcome, everyone in the chat room. It's already filling up. Alan, good to see you out there. From Saskatchewan, Space Lincoln Landrew, nice to see you. Oh, good. Yeah, you saw the interview on the Super Soldier Talk. That's very cool. Yeah, I like James Rink. He's very cool. Colleen, good to see you out there from Palm Springs, California. Blue Otter, nice to see you here from San Marcos, California. Mark Hovsepian always, and the chat room will continue to fill up. We have a lot of information to go over tonight and a little bit of a call to action. We are aware of the tensions that are building all over the world, and especially in the U.S. Those of you that saw Ted Cruz's live stream from inside the tent city at the border, and you saw the Biden administration blocker who was hired a couple of weeks ago with the specific task of going down there and blocking any reporters from filming on the inside. Of course, you can't stop a senator, but she did her best. She put her face right in front of the camera. The camera could see around her when Ted Cruz's cameraman moved the camera, or maybe he was filming with his phone. But you saw how packed those facilities are. It is detestable. There's no telling what that place smells like. Obviously, not enough facilities to take care of everyone down there. Let's see. Trucker Will, nice to see you out there. I know you guys drive a lot, and I highly respect you taking the time on Sunday nights to be here on the program. It means a lot to me. Today was the final day of the Human Origins Conference, which started on Friday. I presented on Saturday. There were 50 presenters from all around the world, some of the best speakers on the planet, and my heart really goes out, heartfelt thanks goes out to Richard and Linda for the superhuman effort to put this on. They tried to put it on in 2020, and of course, Operation Corona Scare shut the whole thing down. They lost money, we lost money, everybody was inconvenienced, but we had faith. They stuck to it, they put it back together, and they did it virtually on Zoom today, and it was a huge success. So my heartfelt thanks and congratulations for a job well done. Those of you that missed it, all of it was recorded. I'm sure you can go to Human Origins Conference. We'll put the link up so that in case you missed the live event, you can watch your favorite speaker, or all the speakers, hopefully, and the panel at the end, which we had this afternoon, by going and paying a small fee and watching the recording. So it was very well done, and we really, really appreciate the effort. All right, let's get started. I want to talk a little bit about the real Parler story. As you know, Parler is a social media platform. Not all of you are on it. Some of you are. They actually had a concerted effort, which was led by Amazon, by Bezos, to rob them of their hosting platform. It took them a while to find a hosting platform. They managed to save all of the data, everybody's registration, all their logins, all their contacts. They did find a hosting. They were able to get it back up and running. Also a superhuman effort by those guys. And so Parler is back up and running. But I want to tell you the real Parler story, what happened. In the days after the presidential rally of peace at the Capitol on January 6th, 2021, which me and 500,000 of my friends attended, obviously big tech moved against the conservative alternative social media platform Parler, based on the premise that Antifa and BLM used Parler to plan the attack on the Capitol, and that Parler had failed in its responsibility to prevent such coordination. Based on this false narrative, Apple and Google removed Parler from their app stores, and Amazon removed Parler's internet hosting. Now, on Thursday, Parler flipped the narrative on its head. On Thursday of this week, Parler sent a response to the House Committee on Oversight and Reform's request for documents regarding what they termed a riot. The company explained in a press release. In that response, Parler revealed that it had proactively developed an open line of communication with the FBI in the fall of 2020 and referred violent content and incitement from Parler's platform over 50 times before January 6th. True to their policy of protecting the Democrat Party, the FBI failed to take action on any of those reports. Parler also warned the FBI about specific threats of violence being planned for the events at the Capitol on January 6th. I, myself, even heard of credible threats on the radio when I was driving to D.C. for the Rally of Peace. In its letter, Parler said that the company recognizes legal limits to free speech and that its policies have always prohibited threats of violence and incitement on its platform. The letter details Parler's efforts to flag and remove unlawful speech from its platform that was not protected by the First Amendment. It also notes that of the 270 charging documents filed by the Department of Justice, 80% of social media references involved big tech platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Only 5% referred to Parler. The letter goes on to explain that Parler accumulated over 15 million users by January 2021, and its app was the most downloaded app at Apple App Store and the Google US Play Store on January 8th, 2021. Now you begin to see what the real issue was. It's called competition. It's called fascism. This is what fascists do when some independent company begins to compete with their government-protected, government-sponsored, government-endorsed business. Now, the company's press release connected the dots, and I quote, "Big tech rivals Facebook and Twitter saw Parler as a viable threat and ganged up with Amazon and others to deplatform and destroy the company. Big tech has been effectively scapegoating Parler for the violence at the Capitol, but Parler's revelations on Thursday show that the company acted responsibly to try and stop the violence at the Capitol on January 6th. Now, along with the letter and the press release, Parler provided the emails, the actual emails, alerting the FBI to incitements to violence on Parler's social media platform. The company repeatedly warned its FBI contact about the potential for violence on January 6th. In one email, Parler forwarded a message from a user who called for an armed force of American patriots, 150,000, prepared to react to the congressional events on January 6th and follow what the Declaration of Independence has dictated to do in situations of absolute despotism. One more, actually, from the same account. More where this came from, concerned about Wednesday, a Parler employee wrote to the FBI contact on January 2nd. This is 4 days before the Rally for Peace. The Saturday before the events of Wednesday, January 6th. Contrary to the big tech narrative, Parler did its due diligence and reported threats of violence to the FBI in advance of the Capitol violence. These actions, coupled with the fact that Parler only appeared in 5% of the DOJ's charging documents, completely and totally flips the big tech narrative on its head. The Capitol rioters did coordinate on Parler, in part, but they also did it on other social media platforms, none of whom were curtailed in any way. Parler was not negligent in its duty to remove incitements to violence, as Amazon, Apple, and Google claimed. In fact, it removed those incitements and alerted the FBI about them. Parler may not have been perfect in this regard, but the company had been proactive before the Capitol riot. There is no truth to the completely absurd conspiracy theories that have been put forth by big tech and its media allies to unfairly malign the company, and which were referenced in the committee's letter. That's Parler, their letter to the editor. Now, let's see. Contrary to what has been reported, and as explained in more detail, the company is and always has been American-owned and controlled. Parler has never engaged in any collusion with the Russians, and Parler never offered President Donald J. Trump an ownership interest in the company. Internet Accountability Project President Mike Davis summed up the situation well, and I quote, "When Twitter targets conservatives, including President Trump, big tech shills tell us to build our own Twitter. So Parler did. Then trillion-dollar monopolists Google and Apple, running their duopoly cartel, kicked Parler out of the app stores. Then trillion-dollar monopolists Amazon kicked Parler off the internet, Davis recounted. The stated reason for Google, Amazon, and Apple's anti-competitive conspiracy was that Parler promoted the violence at the January 6th protests at the Capitol. But we've learned today, last Thursday, that that was a lie. It was pretextual excuse by $3 trillion big tech monopolists to kill a competitor of Twitter. Indeed, we now know that in the days and weeks leading up to January 6th, Parler made over 50 referrals of violent content to the FBI, including specific threats of violence being planned at the Capitol. Now, we know the truth, which is that big tech used Parler as a scapegoat. They wanted to destroy a startup company that was a viable threat to their social media dominance. Now, while Parler withdrew its original January federal lawsuit against Amazon, guess what? It filed a new one, a lawsuit in Washington State Court alleging defamation and breach of contract. I guarantee you that lawsuit is going to be upheld. So now you know the truth. Now you know what actually happened. And that is what remains to be seen, what we think will happen. Let's see what's going on in the chat room here. Yes. Well, Parler isn't being held responsible. They're being blamed. As you know, because all of this was planned and the violence that Antifa and BLM conducted was already underway while President Trump was talking. So there was no incitement on the president's part whatsoever. They knew it was coming. They opened the doors and let them in. In fact, one video that I saw showed that BLM and Antifa activists were already inside the Capitol in a storeroom, and they changed clothes into clothes that looked like they were Trump supporters, and then they went out. And when they came into the filmed area where the police were and a lot of the tourists were that came into the rotunda and the surrounding areas, they came from behind the policemen to join the crowd, as though they were being stored in another room and then brought out to make the violence happen. And the reason that that happened was because at that very moment, on the floor of the House, representatives from Arizona were debating whether or not to use electors slated by the state legislature or whether to use those that were slated by the governor and the secretary of state, who changed the voting laws at the last minute. And that debate seemed to be going well. That was not going to be allowed to happen. And so Nancy Pelosi left the podium, and a few minutes later, they were evacuated from the area when the violence broke out and when Ashley Babbitt was assassinated. That's what got everything moving. So let's see here. Cherokee Drifter, I'm glad you have my back. I need somebody to have my back and my sides, but I can take care of the front. Overland Lad, good to see you out there. Greetings from Wales. Wow, that's nice. I like Wales. I took the ferry from Donabate to Wales, and what a bunch of roundabouts you guys have over there. Very, very cool country. It reminds me a lot of Tennessee. Let's see. Yes, I know. I'm not on DLive. DLive has not picked up the feed tonight for some reason. They are having internal problems. If it picks up, then we'll start to get some echoes, and we'll see what happens. So I'm still getting the chat, but there's no video there. So I won't be giving away any lemons because I'm not live on DLive tonight. Michelle, good to see you out there. Hello, Earth Explorers. Thank you for another truthful night. Let's see. David Howard, good to see you out there on YouTube. Yes, I know it's been going on for decades in every industry. Ford, GM, Plymouth, exactly like shutting down the Tucker. You see, this is how fascism works. A lot of people don't understand what fascism is. Fascism is not where the government controls everything. It is, but this is how it occurs. What happens is very large corporations end up sending their officers and their donors to Washington. And they are placed inside of the agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations like a revolving door. Same thing happens with Grumman and Lockheed and NASA, and it goes around and around and around. From military into military arms, from military arms back to the military. It's like a revolving door. Well, the same thing happens with giant corporations. Car makers, power distributors and suppliers, oil companies, chemical companies like Monsanto. And what happens is they go inside those agencies that affect their industry. So, for instance, Monsanto will send its representatives into the FDA so they can control the laws and regulations that have to do with their genetic marker GMO foods that they're putting out. Of course, if anybody tries to compete against them, then those regulations are then used with the force of law to go up against their competitors, which would be farmers that were running crops or species that compete against their genetically modified foods. The same thing goes with cars. If an upstart car company wants to introduce a new vehicle made in America, then the car companies go to the Department of Transportation and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and they write regulations that are expensive. They're expensive for the big car makers too, but they're prohibitively expensive for startup companies. Whereas it's no problem whatsoever for a big company to spend $1 million crash testing one of their vehicles. For a small company to spend $1 million crash testing their vehicles, it's expensive, and it ends up eating up most of their profits. So this is what goes on, and it goes on in every single industry. So you're right. It has been going on for a long, long time. Let's see here. Hollow Earth guy is out there. Parler was a honeypot for conservatives. It is owned by the Mercers, neocons, establishment GOP scum that hate Trump. Okay, well, freedom of speech. I'll allow that to be said tonight. I don't have experience with that. I don't read everything that's on Parler, but Parler doesn't really do a lot of censorship, so it's quite possible that neocons were putting their stuff on there too. But the nice thing about free speech is that if we don't want to hear it, we just change channels and we just scroll by it and we don't repost it. We don't echo it. That's what it's called on Parler, and we don't support it. So, of course, propaganda is going to get out there on every single channel. But, and I get you that Gab is trustworthy, but, I've been on Gab since they first flipped the first light on there. And I got to be honest, it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. Their news feed's messed up. You have to pay money to be able to post. I know their business model, and it just doesn't work for me. I'm not going to pay money so that somebody can read my post. They say CBD helps you sleep. Yes, it does. It does. You take one of those CBD gummy bears, I defy you to binge on Netflix after that. You'll be asleep in your chair. I use the CBD ointment, ointment. You can put it on, and it kind of helps with inflammation, which is the starter to arthritis. So if you can keep the inflammation at bay, it keeps arthritis at bay as well. Good to see you out there, Dixie Doodle. Sorry I'm not streaming on D-Live. I don't know why. It's, wait a minute. We are. Starter to. All right. We're up on D-Live. Nice. So I will definitely be giving away some lemons in the second hour, so hang out, you guys. It just takes a while sometimes for the feeds to get all the way through. We're now streaming on all platforms, and I appreciate that very much. Let's see here. That's about every Michael, 1973 Dog Stars out there on YouTube. Nice to see you. Sleeve Garnish. That's good. That's good. North England. Good to see you out there, mate. Andres, nice to see you. What? ICU, what does that mean? Intensive care unit. Hopefully not you. Okay, good. So we're coming through 5x5 on DLive. This is good. We love DLive. It's a great platform. It's a small company. When we first got started, there was all gamers, and I love the gamers. Believe it or not, I'd like to watch people play games in the background when I'm working on stuff. And it's great for that. Those guys are awesome. And I noticed that they had a folder for podcasts. Of course, I went there a few dozen times over the last year, and there wasn't much action, maybe 2 people podcasting at any given moment, if at all. So I said, well, yeah, why not? We'll take America Free Radio there and see what happens. So I put it on there, and it didn't do much for a while. Now it's beginning to gain a little traction. And then the purge happened at YouTube. And once they dumped all of my colleagues, most of my colleagues, Red Pill and X22 and all those guys were kicked off of YouTube. They were looking for other platforms to go. And I told Red Pill about DLive. He switched over. He very quickly began to build an audience. He's outperformed every expectation. And he's doing quite well. So hopefully DLive sticks to it. They don't purge us, and we'll continue to build DLive as long as they give us a place to share freedom of speech, as long as it's peaceful and as long as it's truthful. Let's see. Space Lincoln. I see Tucker's car in the Chicago Museum. Yeah, one back tire. Well, yeah, I think it did. It was a rear engine car, and I think it was air cooled, so it was really quite innovative. Fully independent suspension, which was also innovative for its day. Let's see here. Okay, that's all good. Wow, so many chatters. I wish I could keep up with you all. You're so fast. Okay, he says, Overland Lad says, CBD is great for sleep, but it's difficult to wake up early in the morning. It could be true. I don't know. I know if I have trouble sleeping, which is like all the time, I'll eat one of those CBD gummy bears, and I seem to fall asleep much easier, but I don't have any trouble getting up because I have the most obnoxious alarm that goes off at 4:30 in the morning to get me ready for my long drive to work. Yeah, I know. I'm still working 75 hours. Let's take a quick break. Hold on a second. I missed that. Okay, we'll send Truth Frequency listeners off on their break for 3 minutes, and we will continue. So, speaking of fascists, I put this piece together because this was, sometimes I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I scan the news. And there was this news article on there, and so I was watching it, listening to it, reading it on my iPad. I got sleepy, I put the iPad down, I went back to sleep and woke up at the proper time. When I got up, I went to do some show prep, and the article was gone. It was gone off of Breitbart. It was nowhere to be found on Google. You put in all kinds of phrase searches. It didn't come up anywhere. So I did another. Of course, I reposted it all over my Telegram. And by the way, my Telegram link is right down here on the bottom. You see that? You see that right there? That's a Telegram link. Telegram is exploding. In the last month has really come of age as a media sharing platform. It's not just for chatting. It's not just for phone calling international anymore, because we've been on it since, 2014 or something like that. It was handy, but it wasn't really vital. But wow, has it really come of age. So I posted it on my Telegram, and then it got picked up by Hats and by Keystone Channel and Ilaria of Sirius, and it went everywhere. I mean, thousands and thousands of people have now seen this article, and it is vital that you hear it. So this story was posted early in the morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning. It was up for a couple of hours. I happened to catch it, and then it was gone. You couldn't find it anywhere. So this story, I believe, leaked. I don't think it was supposed to get out, but it leaked. Now, there's no doubt about it. Democrat Congresswoman Schakowsky, she's a Democrat from Illinois, from the House Consumer Protection and Commerce Committee. She made a statement. Now, this is not something that you would expect from consumer protection. It's something you would, yes, it is part of the consumer protection. It is part of the Trade Commission, all of that. But it's not something that you would expect to hear. I believe it wasn't supposed to be said. But on Thursday's broadcast of MSNBC, a program called All In, House Consumer Protection and Commerce Subcommittee Chairwoman Jan Schakowsky discussed the subcommittee's hearing with the CEOs of Facebook, Google, and Twitter. Yeah, this is a hearing with the big boys of tech. And it said that the hearing's purpose was to send the message to tech companies, and I quote, that we're going to regulate, we're going to legislate, and that there have to be some limitations, not just on advertising. Now, Schakowsky later said of the hearing, so the purpose really was, from my point of view, to make sure that the tech companies understood that the day of self-regulation has really ended, and that now it's time for us to regulate, and that we intend to, that we're going to regulate, we're going to legislate. Now, you have to understand that when you say words like this, it's sort of like we're going to investigate, we're going to form a committee, we're going to discuss, we're going to formulate. It's kind of open-ended. And she was not expecting questions. And this totally caught her off guard. What she said next should fortify the claim that I just made. And it will send the chill of fascism through every person listening to this broadcast tonight, right now. Our greatest fears about the regulation of Section 230 are going to materialize. Now, after Jan discussed holding platforms liable for false ads, which makes a lot of sense to me, right? You're in the consumer protection business. You want to catch people making false ads about cryptocurrency or about, some product or another that you're trying to sell or some service. And, they'll buy ads on Facebook and Twitter and Google AdWords and blah, 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 and they'll try to promote their business. And you could see consumer protection getting involved in that. But then Chris Hayes asked her about user content on social media. I don't think she was expecting the question. And he asked what those sort of content moderation policies would look like and the degree to which the government is specifically prescribing them. Obviously, he's not talking about ads. It was a stellar question. And it cut right to the core of the thinking about how we were going to regulate the tech giants. Or is it the other way around? Schakowsky responded, yes, but I do think that there have to be some limitations, but not just on advertising. She tried to repeat her words that she had read off the teleprompter. But the kind of thing that, they have, Facebook has housed QAnon for many, many years, and certainly on the 6th of January, that was coordinated. Well, people died. You see how off guard she was caught? she couldn't complete a sentence. Oh, she knew what she wanted to say. She also knew what she shouldn't say, and she couldn't help it. She wasn't quick enough on her feet with a response to a question. And this totally and completely shows the hand of Facebook up the shirt of the committee. It isn't the people who want their speech regulated. It is big tech that wants to regulate free speech. And they specifically use the fake narrative that the peaceful and massive rally by 500,000 Americans on January 6th was responsible for any of the people who died that day or on the days that followed. BLM and Antifa thugs conspired with congressional insiders to break in and disrupt the debate between state legislatures and the governors of those states. The governors had changed state election law illegally, and because of that, the state legislatures seated their own slate of electors according to the laws of those states and the Constitution of the United States. The debate on the House floor at that time of the BLM Antifa breach and the cold-blooded assassination of unarmed Ashley Babbitt by Special Agent David Bailey of the Capitol Police stopped those debates and changed the course of history. Now, if Congresswoman Schakowsky has her way, what I just said will never be heard by any human ever. The unmitigated truth will be blocked by big tech because the new regulations will allow it. In other words, big tech can never be stopped, and they can never be sued for censorship because they're following the regulations that their inside regulator is writing. No one can run a political ad that they don't want. No one can post a comment that they don't want. No one can promote a website that they don't approve of. Next time, they will go after the hosting companies for providing safe haven for the websites and social medias that are being created to counter this fascist effort to silence Americans. And now you know why it was so important that I get this story out to you. Because it's not who you expect. It's not the Senate. It's not the FCC. It's not the DOJ or the FBI or anyone else. It's little old Consumer Protection from the Trade Commission that is going to do it. And now you see how deep in Facebook, Google, Twitter, the tech giants are inside our government. That is fascism. That is the way fascism works. That's not capitalism. That's fascism. All right. I see the chat room was going like crazy there. I don't even like keep up with all that stuff. What you're describing sounds like we're living in Nazi Germany and the USSR, says Cole Orton. Maybe. I mean, the USSR obviously monitored all media, the press, the printing press, the telephones, everything. They're no more. Russia doesn't do this kind of thing. They don't have time for it, aren't worried about it. Russia is not the USSR. Russia is a private company. A private company. They're a gas station posing as a country, but they are actually very nationalist. So nothing to see there. But Nazi Germany has an analog here, to be sure. Any kind of communication, any flyer, any kind of ad or coded message in a newspaper or anything that was followed up by Nazis, and they would chase these people down, and they would burn their printing presses and put people in jail, send them off to the mines, put them on the front lines, whatever. What is this? Dixie Doodle reeks of Biden's. I don't even know if there will be a Republican Party in 2024. Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. He doesn't even know what day it is. And I have a tendency to believe that he realizes that the Republican Party that existed when he was a senator, Trump destroyed that. Trump tore the Republican Party apart. What is it, 35, 36 Republicans retired or quit, left, because Trump was changing the party. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone left. Oh, no, no, no. Just because Paul Ryan and all these other guys bugged out, the establishment party is alive and well, and it covers both parties. Okay, you got the establishment party, you got Republicans, you got Tea Party, and some libertarians. And that establishment party pretty much takes in the entire Democrat Party because they vote in lockstep. That's the way their company works. It's a private corporation after all. And they're there to protect themselves and their business. And their business is to get reelected and to maintain power. So I don't doubt that the Republican Party, as we recognized it, is not going to be around in 2024. It's going to change. It's changing as we speak. And by the time this new social media gets out there, and it's going to have 80 million followers within 24 hours, so they better be prepared with a big server and a whole lot of bandwidth, and it's going to be quite revolutionary. And what I'm going to tell you tonight is probably something you've never heard before. Oh, you probably heard bits and pieces of it before, but I'm going to organize it for you. So, oh my gosh, I forgot all about TFR. Hello, TFR. Sorry about that. I missed the cue. You've been off the air for about 4 or 5 minutes. Sorry about that. It was just a big dead air. So we're all back now. Hopefully we'll fill back up again. The issue is that bits and pieces of this are out there, but it hasn't been organized. It hasn't been put into a understandable way where the average person could comprehend it. And thanks for joining Telegram, Steve, or Sleeve Garnish. Telegram is awesome, and if you follow me on there, I promise I'm going to put the best stuff in there. I'm connected with Hats and with Keystone Channel and Lara of Sirius and Patriot Alert and a lot of good channels out there, and I promise I'll bring you the best stuff. What is that, Space Lincoln? Google doesn't bring up Simon Park's site. Yeah, and DuckDuckGo does. Right. Well, enough said about Simon Parks. I don't have anything to say about Simon Parks. I try not to say anything about people I don't know or with whose ideas I don't align. So that is no disparage on Simon or any work that he does, but I've watched enough of his stuff that I don't watch it anymore. Let's see here. Russia has the same size economy as Italy. It's a totally different economy, Hollow Earth guy. Here's the thing. About 45%, maybe 50% of Russia's gross domestic product comes from oil and gas. It also comes from technology. Everybody in Europe knows that Russian-made stuff is the best. It's the best. They make the best of everything that's being sold in Europe right now, really. They're very smart. They're very industrious. You have to understand, when the Soviet Union broke apart, all these states are on their own. Latvia, Estonia, they're all on their own. Ukraine, Crimea, they all had to struggle on their own. There's no supportive central government anymore. There's also no central government draining resources from them. And to tell you the truth, Russia's become very national since then, under the leadership of Vladimir Putin, which has been contiguous now for like 20 years. He is a nationalist. There's no question about it. He's not trying to conquer other countries, but he is trying to protect his own, okay? The fact that the Soviets meddled in everybody's business for a long time shouldn't really reflect on whether Russia's meddling in other people's business. They're meddling in keeping Russia alive. So Italy doesn't have that kind of economy. Italy is based on trade and tourism. And if you look at the median age of Italy, it's about the highest in the world. Yeah, it's like their demographics. They're an aging people. Very small families. They're not like they used to be. Now, they have some science and technology, but because of where they're located, in the Med, with warm water ports all the way around the country just about, and being at the bottom of Europe, being able to feed stuff straight up the belly of the Rhine River Valley, they're in very good position. They have a different economy than Russia. But Russia can be hurt when the price of oil gets too low. When the price of oil gets too low, then the revenue to Russia begins to drop off. When the price of oil goes up, Russia does a lot better. And I have another story. I'm going to talk about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline again, give you a little new information on that and where we sit with the Ukraine situation. War of Shadows, good to see you out there. British monarchy, their kinship, their spy network, and their superstructure of privilege in the U.S. is a biological invasion of the U.S. Okay, maybe the British monarchy, but you got a lot of us, Scots and Irish, and we're not British, and we have a lot of biological input into the United States. I don't think there's hardly anybody listening to this program in the U.S. tonight that doesn't have a little Irish in them. So, enough said there. But it's not royal. It's not royal blood. Let's see here. Okay. I'll try to get down to the bottom of this. I'm sorry about lagging behind so much. Italy has a big demographics problem. It's true. Italy is being overrun with illegal immigrants coming to the country and trying to become part of the Italian economy. And I suppose it could use it because they have a lot of old people in Italy. But these people aren't coming, to add to the Italian economy. They're coming to take away from it. Let's see what our time is like on TFR. Oh, we got 10 minutes left, so until the next break. I promise not to forget about you guys again. Until the next break. It's hard to run a tight board sometimes. It's been a long day with other conferences too. All right, how to fell a giant. Jin Canrong, a professor and associate dean of the School of International Studies at Beijing's Renmin University of China, in a July 2016 speech on Sino-U.S. strategic philosophy, explained what China would have to do to replace the United States as the world's only superpower. Yeah, and when I get these stories, these translations are sometimes slow coming, and they're even slower getting into the national news. I'll try to bring them to you with some perspective. Canrong is known for his very anti-American rhetoric, almost as bad as that coming from the Democrat National Committee. Canrong says China needs to tear down the U.S. while building itself up. And by that, he doesn't mean China, he means the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. His plans include a wide array of actions they can take to bring the U.S. down, including interfering in U.S. elections, controlling the American market, cultivating global enemies to challenge the United States, stealing American technology, expanding Chinese territory, and influencing international organizations, which means nonprofits, all the little alphabet nonprofits that you see out there, and all the ones with special little names, that have very patriotic sounds to them. Canrong suggests that China could side with those who hate the United States. This is an old tactic. It's been used in the Cold War for many decades. Dubbed teacher of the state by Chinese netizens, is a prominent scholar in China who is known for his fiery rhetoric aimed at our country. He's an advisor to two powerful bodies of the CCP, the Organization Department and the United Front Work Department. It is not known just how close to Xi, President Xi, he is, but considering his powerful connections, it would come as to no surprise that the two are very close. One of the first steps Can Rong laid out is getting involved in U.S. elections to get China-friendly politicians elected to office. No kidding, just like they did in 2020. He suggests that China use their companies in the United States to urge employees to vote for the company's preferred candidates. Here's what he said, and I quote, "The voting rate in the United States is about 30%. I think that's probably exaggerating. It's probably more like 23%. But let's go with the 30%. It means around 200,000 residents in each congressional district vote for the representative in that district. Normally, the difference of votes between two candidates is less than 10,000 votes, and that's pretty much true. If China has thousands of votes on hand, China will be the boss of the candidates." Now, you have to notice the exact words he used. If China has thousands of votes on hand, what he actually means there, if China had thousands of ballots on hand, thousands of ballots on hand, the best scenario is China can buy the United States and change the U.S. House of Representatives into the second standing committee of the National People's Congress. Close quote. Jin says that China should try to control U.S. markets, and that they are doing. Tried for a long time to do it by having a coordinated effort with the president to move industry from America to China, and that has been very effective. Our entire pharmaceutical industry has moved to China. Most of our polymer generation has moved to China. Most of our large tool making, molds and fixtures and presses have moved to China. All of the big machines are either made in India or China. So they are doing very good at controlling the U.S. markets. Yeah, and China's cutting off water to countries, says William Stillings. That's actually a good point. China just now doing the stereotypical cut the water supply off if their dams don't break. Have you noticed the dry, cracked soil under the rivers that were once flooded? Yeah, they've done a good job. What does that dog start? Do I think Fort Knox is empty? No, I don't. I think there's gold at Fort Knox. Space, that's just my opinion. I don't have anything to base it on. Space Lincoln Landrew, China needs an earthquake machine used on the Yellow River. Won't be too much trouble after that. Yeah, well, maybe. That dam that was threatening to break recently, that is what's known as a gravity dam. It means that they're very large concrete stones that are put in place. That is not a poured dam. It is a stacked dam, not like an earthen dam like we have here in the United States. We have tons and tons of earthen dams. That's a stacked dam, so it is very difficult to get enough water behind it to make it break. The water will go over it, it'll go around it, but it can't move it because you can't get enough altitude of water behind the stones to move them. It's physics. Too much inertia. Yeah. So, change the subject really quick. I want to talk about something that it came up actually in 2009, I think, when I was first developing the electric truck. I had been building electric cars for a while, and then we switched over to trucks in 2009. I bought a bunch of truck frames. I bought Fords, and I bought some trucks from China and got some from India, and we started toying with converting them to electric because we thought, well, our electric drive is so superior that we can sell the drive to those companies and make electric pickup trucks. I was wrong, but I got involved in the industry, and my patents are still pretty solid, and my electric Condor is still superior to anything that they build. But be that as it may, one of the things electric vehicles don't do is buy gas. And because we don't buy gas, we don't pay the fuel tax. We use the roads. We don't do any damage to the roads because, electric vehicles are like, what, 0.25% of the vehicles on the road? It's ridiculous. Like, at one time, there were less than 1,000 vehicles in the state of North Carolina, but that didn't stop them from putting in a mileage tax. Yeah, a mileage tax. Now, you know that I'm the inventor of the on-highway electric pickup truck in America, right? I own the patent. It's in my name. You know that I've been close to the auto industry manufacturing business for most of my life. I've been designing and building cars since I was 15 years old. The car is so much a part of American culture. After racing and competing in the industry, I was convinced that the internal combustion engine was here to stay. I will be alive and well, it will be alive and well 100 years from now because it is cheap and it will operate on almost any fuel, even if it's homemade. The government knows this, so they tax the fuel to pay for the roads. Big trucks use more fuel and do 95% of the damage to the roads, so they pay the bulk of the tax. Well, actually, you do in the price of the goods you purchase. And that was true until the electric vehicle began to be prominent. In North Carolina, buyers pay a $100 electric vehicle tax when they buy a vehicle to offset the taxes they won't pay by driving it on North Carolina roads. Many states have tried to pass a way to tax electric vehicles who appear to be using the roads for free. They can't put a separate meter at your house to tax your charger, but they can demand you get your vehicle inspected every year to be licensed to drive on their roads. During that inspection, your mileage is recorded for the state. It is at that point that states have been trying to collect the tax on EV owners. So far, the industry, especially us small guys, we've managed to block it. Why? Because EVs don't damage the roads, and the emissions are non-existent, so the benefits offset the burden on the state. Now, all that effort is about to be lost to the political aspirations of, we'll send TFR to its break, the political aspirations of little Peter Buttcrack. Yep. Speaking to CNBC, Buttcrack claimed, and I quote, President Joe Biden's forthcoming plans to rebuild the nation's roads, bridges, and waterways would lead to a net gain for the U.S. taxpayer and not a net outlay, the network reported. When you think about infrastructure, it's a classic example of the kind of investment that has a return on that investment. That's one of many reasons why we think this is so important. This is a jobs vision as much as it is an infrastructure vision, a climate vision, and more. Buttcrack views his job not simply as roads and railways, but as an outpost in the culture wars. In February, little Peter Buttcrack said he was going to tackle systemic racism from his position. A vehicle miles tax would cost drivers based on how far they drive, not on how much gasoline is consumed. This would financially target all electric vehicle owners, the vast majority of whom are white. The age breakdown for buyers of electric vehicles based on a January 2019 survey is as follows. Less than 1% of electric vehicle owners are 24 and younger. 46% of them are between the ages of 25 and 54. That's one of the big groups. 22%, 55 to 64. 32% are 65 and older. Now, the numbers are slightly different for purchasers of what we call hybrids, plug-in hybrids. Less than 1% are 24 and younger. 54% 25 to 54. 22% 55 to 64, and 23% are 65 years and older. These are the Hondas and the Priuses, and you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Mailer, exactly right. It's a racist tax. In principle, the federal tax credit of up to $7,500 for purchase of a new electric vehicle dramatically lowers the purchase price, and it does. But nearly all working poor and middle-class people owe nothing like $7,500 in federal income taxes, so that credit is mainly a subsidy for rich white people. Living in charging deserts amplifies range anxiety, how far a car runs before needing a charge. Now, supermarkets like Whole Foods or big box stores like Walmart that often have charging stations aren't usually found in communities of color. Most charging takes place at home overnight. Let's go ahead and bring TFR back in. There'll be a little intro music here.
Frequency Radio.
Hour 2. So, people who own homes are able to install charging hardware. The majority of residents in communities of color are renters and do not have access to home charging hardware. Now, while fuel and maintenance cost savings resonate with low-income consumers once they know about them, other charges like the high registration fees may be difficult to overcome. Every driver pays federal and state gas charges at the pump. But drivers don't budget for them. They just pay them, right? You just pay it at the pump. You don't worry about what the state and federal tax is on a gallon of gas. You just bitch about the price of gas, right? But states like Ohio, North Carolina, Arkansas, they have imposed exorbitant annual EV registration fees on top of the property taxes on your vehicle that far exceed what owners of gasoline-powered cars pay. These fees directly target low-income people and most particularly people of color. A 2019 Consumer Reports EV fee analysis found that by 2025, 18 states will charge higher EV fees than drivers of new gasoline-powered cars pay in gas taxes. A so-called vehicle miles traveled tax or mileage tax, whatever you want to call it, could be a way to do it. This is what little Peter Buttcrack said in his quest to generate revenue to pay for these impending spending proposals. It's always about spending proposals. It's not clear whether a vehicle mileage tax would replace the federal gas tax or be in addition to it, but Buttcrack also did not say if certain vehicles Democrats prefer would be exempt. A mileage tax shows a lot of promise if we believe in that so-called user pay principle. The idea that part of how we pay for roads is you pay based on how much you drive. According to Yahoo, Buttcrack intends to use the spending proposal to boost his own brand. The question that few can answer at this juncture is whether electric cars are a niche phenomenon coveted by a privileged few as a cheaper means of commuting and traveling, or whether the U.S. moves decisively to include low and moderate income people of all races in the next phase of the clean energy revolution that is vital to the survival of every species. I would say little Peter Buttcrack may have bit off more than he can swallow when it comes to adding a federal mileage tax to the working poor in America. So that's my EV update for you. What is that, Hollow Earth guy? Fascists are of many different political persuasions. The definition of fascism is a corporate and government combination. That is correct. The definition of fascism is when corporations install themselves into government and use the power of government and their ability to write regulations with the force of law to prevent other corporations, like Parler, from competing against them. That is the pure definition of fascism. You don't believe me? Why don't you go read up on FDR? Why don't you go read up on Mussolini, one of his best pen pal buddies, whom he helped model his government after? All right, I was promised you a gas pipeline update, so I want to bring this to you. Now, last week, I told you how the global syndicate has resumed demanding American pressure to stop Russia from completing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to provide natural gas to the EU. That's it in a nutshell. Now, Obama had Johns McCain and Kerry create a revolution, and Victoria Nuland orchestrated the massacre of more than 100 protesters using U.S. Army rooftop snipers to stop Ukraine President Yanukovych from signing a lucrative trade deal with Putin. Now, there are 2 states in the Ukraine. I told you about them last week. They want to be annexed to Russia, and NATO is threatening to invade them if they do. Now, this war is designed to stop Putin from completing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And Virtual Joe has asked for sanctions against Russia if it continues with the pipeline. But the announcement today seems to indicate Putin is calling his bluff. According to a story in oilprice.com, you don't read oilprice.com, but there's interesting stuff in there. I'm going to leave the link in my notes so you could access it after the program and read that article and maybe even bookmark oilprice.com, because it's a good indicator of things that are happening in the industry, and you can prepare yourself in a lot of different ways. But they said the controversial Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipeline project will definitely be completed this year. We're talking 2021. That's Viktor Zubkov, the chairman of the board of directors of Russia's gas giant Gazprom. That's what he said 2 days ago. Now, I quote, "The active work is underway, with quite a bit remaining to be done," Zubkov told reporters, as carried by Russian news agency TASS. "It will surely be completed this year, definitely," Zubkov noted. "Around 90 to 92% of the work required for the project has already been done," the Gazprom executive said. Earlier this year, Gazprom was said to have warned investors that Nord Stream 2 project could be suspended or entirely discontinued due to what he called extraordinary circumstances, which centered around what he called political pressure. Now, people don't understand just how powerful the global syndicate is. You do, because you listen to this program, but I want you to get more people to listen to this program specifically. They want that gas supplied without competition from the Golan Heights, from the Med, across the Med and through Italy, which they have nearly bankrupted. They have already bankrupted Greece. The intentional blockage of the Suez Canal by the Evergreen, by the way, and don't you find it highly peculiar that the Red Sea has been parted again, this time by a container ship, has filled the Med with ships. Almost 400 ships are at anchor waiting to enter the canal. It's costing some $400 million a day that canal is blocked. The gas pipeline project, which has divided Europe and drawn opposition and criticism from Virtual Joe, the global syndicate puppet ruler, has to complete the pipe laying work in Danish territorial waters. However, Virtual Joe is threatening more sanctions on entities that help Gazprom and on the partners in the project as it continues to seek to stop the project from actually happening and being commissioned. They're trying to make it where no companies will make any profit from installing the pipeline. Now, Germany, which a lot of you don't know this, but Germany is the end point of the pipeline. The pipeline is going to Germany, okay? It has always looked at the Russian-led project from an economic standpoint, while the global syndicate, several European countries, including the Baltic states, Poland, and the European Union, have expressed concern about Russia using gas sales and its gas monopoly, Gazprom, as a political tool. I think that's just a bunch of rhetoric. Nobody's going to cut off their customer when you rely on your customer to pay your bills. You wouldn't, if you owned a grocery store, cut off conservatives from shopping at your grocery store. All that ice cream would melt. You'd have to completely change the foods that you have in your grocery store if you forbid conservatives to shop there. President Trump believed it was a great way to bring the interests of the EU and Russia together and make NATO obsolete. Remember, NATO was formed, the North American Treaty Alliance. The NATO was formed specifically to protect Europe against the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. They're gone. This was a path to world peace that he envisioned. But the path Virtual Joe has resumed on behalf of the global syndicate is an unswerving path to war. No question about it. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said at a briefing exactly what I'm claiming at the end of January. Over the past months, Virtual Joe has been broadening the sanctions against service providers and those funding vessels also involved in the construction of Nord Stream 2 in a fresh attempt to prevent the project from completing. There is still a stretch of the pipeline route that has to be laid in the sea in Danish waters. But the U.S., under Virtual Joe, is now targeting anyone helping the project's completion in any way. Now you know the truth about what's going on. The global syndicate wants the gas pipeline to come from the Golan Heights up through southern Europe. Putin wants the pipeline to go through Danish waters to Germany from the north. NATO is a military arm of the global syndicate. Make no mistake about that. The reality is that there comes a point where people begin to realize that they're being asked to back a war where the existential threat to the global syndicate's power is transferred onto them. And now make no mistake here, they are spending billions propagandizing you right now into believing their wars are for your own good. And that is exactly why Virtual Joe called Putin a soulless killer recently. War being made to sound inevitable by the global media empire, a major pillar of the global syndicate, it feathers their own nest directly. supports the goals of other powerful folks indirectly, or covers up past corruption. War's always been a great way to wipe away their sins with human blood. Now, the brewing conflict in Ukraine is exactly the model they follow. The project to add Ukraine to NATO and the EU is a long-held dream of neocons like the cold-blooded killer Victoria Nuland and the mindless puppets like Virtual Joe. It's an important cog in the World Economic Forum's desire to expand the EU to both encircle Russia, thereby disrupting any dreams of Eurasian integration, which could form a bulwark against their brave new world. Now, what's really making Virtual Joe crap his diaper is that he's neck deep in the corruption in Ukraine. In Obama's own words, Ukraine is Joe's project. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is not fully subsumed into the morass of Virtual Joe's problems. The entire billion-dollar money laundering operation Virtual Joe ran with Burisma and demanding the president of Ukraine fire the attorney general for investigating Hunter Biden is wrapped around the bomb that is about to go off in the middle of Europe. Putin's deft and cordial handling of Virtual Joe's immature name-calling was masterful. The world can see that Virtual Joe is a barely coherent, diaper-wetting bully with no discernible achievements in life other than being available to be a placeholder for someone else's plans. He can't complete a totally scripted press conference, let alone match wits with Putin in a debate. I give Virtual Joe another 32 days, and he will be moved aside for come Allah to execute the orders provided by the syndicate. In fact, I believe the CCP already has offices being wired for them in the West Wing as we speak. If you really want to see something sickening, wait until Putin and Chinese Premier President Xi Jinping attend the big climate summit next month. Lightweight Secretary of State Antony Blinken will absolutely embarrass the U.S. on the world stage. Since both Putin and Xi told the WEF to go piss in the wind on the radical climate change tax, which is at the core of the Global Syndicate's Agenda 2030, and, most notably, from Putin, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I don't see how this summit ends any better than the virtual Davos did earlier this year. Did you hear anything about it? Nothing of consequence. A bunch of rich people swilling wine and running from one bedroom to another as they conduct their high-level orgy. Putin understands as well that Virtual Joe will facilitate every military escalation in Ukraine because he's shackled to the corruption with blood and money. And Kerry and Nuland need to complete the job they started with the overthrow of Viktor Yanukovych in 2014. That means we'll see something far worse than Victoria Nuland's latest cookie campaign for freedom. We're going to see a war for the Donbass soon, likely right after Orthodox Easter and the end of the snow melt. Putin tried to go directly to the people to end this destructive spiral to the bottom because he knows where this ends, as do I. I know where this is going, and so do you. Why do you think Angela Merkel stepped down? She doesn't want to be part of the massacre that is going to occur. It will be a confrontation that one side will have to commit to completely or allow its bluff to be called. The game the global syndicate has played to this point has been a massive escalation of rhetoric, while continually moving real pieces into position for a real conflict. Trust me when I tell you this. Millions of tons of hardware, troops, and missiles are being moved right now toward this explosion of a war. China and Russia are going to stand their ground. And that means that the syndicate and Virtual Joe have to back down. I just don't see that happening. At the end of the day, it's not about winning. It's about fighting. The only way the conflict ends is through surrender of one side. And that's just not going to happen, Earth Explorers. Russia has to be destroyed or subjugated if the Great Reset is to happen, and Europe is to remain a relevant global player. I don't see that happening. I don't see that as a viable solution. Now, you got to be aware of the massive naval forces that are right now in the Black Sea. They want to take back Crimea, which is nearly surrounded by water. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov recently reiterated publicly that Russia has had zero diplomatic contact with the European Union, and it goes all the way back to 2014 when the vote happened by Crimea to rejoin Russia. Remember, that was not an invasion. It was not a conquest. It was a voluntary vote to be annexed for Russian protection from NATO, which was advancing on them in 2013. ISIS was being built with weapons seized from Libya by Hillary Clinton. Al-Qaeda fighters were being used in Ukraine to fight for them on the streets of Donetsk. Diplomacy is almost over between the major powers. We've already seen them recalling diplomats. Virtual Joe's refusal to talk to Putin publicly is the straightest path to war possible. President Trump openly and frequently spoke with Putin to make sure war was not an option. Silence is not macho. It is suicide in global diplomacy. In the end, everything we've lived through since Operation Corona Scare began boils down to subjugation of the world to one central power, the global syndicate. It goes by many names, but this name fits best. They have been led by the same evil for thousands of years. They never waver. They never change. They will never surrender. There is no treaty that will ever stand. There is no salvation for them. They have one mission in the universe. They want to collect every soul of mankind. They cannot do this through killing. They can only do it when we choose evil of our own free will. We will do that when we desire to kill another person out of hatred. We must not hate. Even Jesus lost his supernatural power when he hated. He had to use a whip, you'll recall, instead of his ability to drive evil from the unwilling soul. A willingly evil soul, like the Pharisees, must be shown the way to hell. What? You want me to read from the book some more? Really? Seriously, you do? I don't know. I don't even have it up. You want me to bring it up during the break? I got lots more to go over. Let me go over some more, okay? Well, I'll see what I feel like if I want to read from the book. We got about 4 minutes left in this segment on TFR. So it brings me to the centerpiece of tonight's broadcast, because everywhere you go, just about every single media, doesn't matter if it's free press or scripted fascist press, you're going to hear this word. And so I thought I would address it tonight because I love you guys and I want you to have a straight definition of this. I know Hollow Earth guy. He says Red Dawn is coming. I don't think it's going to be that way. I don't think an invasion is not something. They're programmed from before birth. Space Lincoln Landrew. We're talking about demons coming here to Earth in human bodies. Want to try to avoid this. That's why I'm talking about it. It's why I want you to hear it. We're very careful when we speak about a looming civil war on the horizon. You've heard the words. I know you have. We want to be forward-looking without manifesting the future. Okay? There's a lot more at stake here than ego. There's a lot more at stake here than just the residents of Earth that you see, okay? There's more to the universe than what you think. And there's more to the Earth than what you think. When we look at the future, it changes. So we need to think about what future we choose. Violent conflict is not yet inevitable. They think it is. But the prospect of battle with American patriots is at the heart and soul of our republic. It is. It is. And I'm not talking about conflict. I'm talking about the prospect of conflict. It's a completely different thing. The Founding Fathers spoke about it often. It is precisely why the Second Amendment is second, only behind speech. I do not believe that American troops will obey orders to fight the American people. This war is not going to be fought like the American Revolution or the Civil War of 1861, where disciplined armies march against one another and take city after city until the other surrenders. The vast majority of American land is irrevocably controlled by patriots. It is. There are 100 million of us, and only about 2 million total armed forces in America. Patriots outgun and outman any U.S. Army 50-1. That being said, the revolution has to be fought a different way. I even use the word fight in a rhetorical way here, and not in the literal sense. Holding ground is not fighting. Protecting your home or your neighborhood against mobs is not fighting. The intent to make a political change without violence is our goal here. The only violence waged is by far-left radicals and their deep state puppet masters. For them, civilian casualties and massacres will not be moral evils, but vital to their larger plan to, quote, reconstruct America. Their objective is simple: overthrow our constitutional order, destroy our way of life, destroy the core family, and deprive us of our freedom, our liberties, our property, and our honor. Our objective is also very simple: recover our rights and replace them with American patriots who will preserve and protect the Constitution, right? That is so simple that it should be plain for all to see. The barrier to accomplishing that goal is that our system of elections has been destroyed by the global syndicate. And until it is restored to its full integrity with voter ID and in-person voting with supervised tallies, American patriots must use other means to make the corrective action. Now, I've studied countries that have suffered civil war and its horrors, such as Russia, Syria, Lebanon, Croatia, Bosnia, Kosovo, and I've also carefully studied the history of revolutions and civil conflict. And until recently, I would never have believed a second civil war in America to be possible. But you know as well as I do that the warning signs are all there. And they began appearing most visibly when Donald Trump became the president nominee. He started this revolution when he said in his inaugural address that this was not the peaceful transition of power from one party to another. It was the transfer of power from Washington back to the people. He is the first American politician that strikes fear into the hearts of both the deep state and the radical left. And that fear makes us extremely dangerous. Remember, they do not hate Donald Trump. They hate us. They hate you. The Bolshevik October Revolution of 1917 was carried out by a mere few thousand party members in St. Petersburg. And you know what? It was sudden and unexpected. The Bolshevik Central Committee made the decision to launch a coup d'etat only hours before its execution. And you know what? There was no time for even the most well-informed spies to alert the leadership it was coming. The people were prepared, and they were armed. They had no internet or elaborate phone system. Hang on a second while I bring TFR back in, my favorite musical interlude.
Who would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
Yes, we will. By the way, thank you, Warrior Biatch, for that generous contribution in Top Chat. As you know, at the bottom of YouTube, at the very bottom, there's a little rectangle with the dollar sign in it. That's Top Chat, and you can always make contributions there. She says, loved your show with Alara. We are planning, by the way, Alara of Sirius and myself. We're going to figure out how to do this. We're going to do a simulcast. Her program is on at the same time my program is on. So what we're going to do is we're going to run both programs at the same time, and we're going to be sharing viewers, and we're going to be talking at the same time on all networks. It'll be epic. It'll be epic. We're planning on doing it. We might do it next week. What is this? Mark says, if D.C. sends the military out for confiscation, the gun owners won't attack the military. They'll attack Washington. And that's exactly what the Second Amendment says to do. Scott Hare says, there's still a band of brothers and sisters in ways that only you can relate to. If you served, I believe you will see a split, though. Well, this is exactly why I'm covering this story tonight, because I think all of that can be avoided. I'm going to show you. Now, as I told you, there was no internet, there was no elaborate phone system or anything when the Russian Revolution took place. A leader stepped up, and the action was taken within hours. In fact, as late as July of 1917, Lenin himself did not expect a communist revolution in his lifetime. The Russian Civil War that followed is a horrifying story of savage carnage and obscene violence. But the American coup, it didn't take anybody by surprise. President Trump revealed to us how they would do it, when they would do it, and who would do it. The coup plotters acted quickly and methodically to seize the critical levers of power before any opposition had a chance to react. Any movement at all was blasted by the global media empire as an attempt to overthrow the election. The global media empire ensured it went off without a hitch, except for the unfortunate assassination of Ashley Babbitt. We hardly remember her name now. And they will be aided and abetted by the kinds of people Lenin referred to contemptuously as useful idiots. We see them now, placed into cabinet positions as payoff for the complicity in the coup, idiots to the very last person. The first priority is obvious, okay? You already mentioned it in the chat room. The confiscation of all privately owned guns. An armed citizenry ready and prepared to defend its rights would be an intolerable threat to the regime. The next logical step would be identifying any and all possible sources of opposition and interning them and their families in re-education camps. The third priority will be a radical redistribution of property. They fully intend to destroy the American free enterprise economy. In the short term, they seek to guarantee their loyal supporters like Stacey Abrams and others a share of the spoils. Now it's been 48 days since they actually seized power. Americans are still numb. No leader has stepped forward to tell them what to do. Each passing hour they retain control will make the cost of recovery exponentially higher in lives, money, and faith. Thank you, Scott Hare, for that generous contribution. Wow. What is it? Tickle Me Joe's paper money at least is going to a good place. I know where mine went. When my stimulus check came in, I wrote the check to pay my taxes. What can I say? The taxes that I paid came back to me, and I paid my taxes with them. It was a wash for me. Now, we only have two methods of recovery outlined for us in the Constitution. I'm trying to stay within the law here. The first we have talked about many, many times on this program, but it's too late for that now. A convention of states would be crushed by the fascists now in power. No question about it. The second is much harder to do, but it will get the job done in less than 1 day. The shock troops will come from the ranks of Antifa and radical anti-white elements of the Black Lives Matter movement. These fascist stormtroopers will be augmented by even larger numbers of veterans of Occupy and other far-left movements, and jihadists from across the globe will flock to support this coup. But the real power will be behind the scenes, in the hands of the bureaucrats of the global syndicate, who will see such a far-left coup as their best chance to preserve and expand their far-reaching powers, but which President Trump threatens. There are millions of them in the federal and state government structures. They're not violent. They're just greedy cowards. They're not violent. They can be neutralized in a matter of seconds by just turning off their phones and blocking their internet accounts. We know their names, we know their addresses, we know their social media networks. That is no worry at all. The global media empire will fall into lockstep. in the belief that as long as they are supportive, the coup leaders will allow them to stay in business. Many Americans will believe their pro-coup propaganda and quietly submit. They'll wear the mask as a sign of surrender and refrain from any resistance whatsoever. The rest of us, you, will be and do something extraordinary. The faculties at Harvard, Yale, and Princeton will pass resolutions of fervent support, and their brainwashed students will rush to enlist in the revolution before all of the excitement passes. Likewise, the left-leaning foundations and oligarchs will promise financial support, and the Federal Reserve will flood the economy with debased currency. Are we not already seeing this occur? Nearly every single Democrat and a surprising number of Republican politicians will turn traitor. But there will be some prominent establishment statesmen who will say they are there to defend our country. Oh, we have to defend the democracy. They will naively believe that they will be able to control the revolution and turn it to their own purposes. When their fig leaf of respectability is no longer required, they'll get the fate they deserve. They will try to maintain the guise of continuity of government while they seize the critical levers of power. They can, and they will, be neutralized as well. We know who they are. The action must take place over a span of less than 24 hours. Because America's external enemies, they're not going to sit idly by. They will try every tactic to offer support for the revolution. They know that history records that those who start revolutions are never the ones who end them. They want to be the ones who get the gold and the weapons of America. Expect several states, by the way, to subdivide into smaller states to neutralize the power of the coastal cities have over the state's territories. Los Angeles will be expelled from North California. Austin and Houston will become their own states, while 3 others are created with their own senators and governors. New York, Illinois, Virginia, Oregon will also undergo border changes, leaving the fascist leaders of the megacities alone without their tax base. They have no military, so they will not be able to resist in any way. If we do not do this swiftly and decisively, Russia will expect a return of Alaska and its oil to the motherland. China and the European Union may foreclose on our economic sovereignty, and the states will become vassals of Beijing and Brussels. Oh, and of course the United Nations will offer to send in the blue helmets to restore civil order. North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, and Iran will also want in on the spoils in return for their technical support. Now look, I don't wish to be an alarmist, and I'm not. Patriots are not in conflict with the American military community, not at all. The Pentagon will officially say they follow Virtual Joe, but they will not march against the American people. What I describe here is a plausible scenario, and have no doubt our nation's enemies are resolute and they are determined. The continued existence of our great country, the United States of America, will depend on the focused bravery, strength, resourcefulness, and patriotism of her most loyal citizens. There must be no temptation to seize power. On the contrary, I am proposing the return of power to the communities by placing their truly elected officials into office. The preparations for this have already been made. You don't lack the heart. You don't lack courage. The skills to conduct this revolution are already in our hands. You have been trained, and you have been prepared for this mission to restore the republic by replacing all elected officials and the secretaries, acting secretaries, and undersecretaries of every agency, department, bureau, and administration, all 535 of them. That must take place over a span of less than 24 hours. And if you cannot find 535 good patriots in America to serve in these positions, then we are already lost. As I said, the election system has been totally compromised. It cannot and will not be used to accomplish this mission. It will be totally reformed to demand in-person voting with ID as it should have been 30 years ago. That will be done after the removal of all 535 elected officials and their replacement with officials the people of those districts approve of. There may be some that return to office, but the vast majority will be removed from power forever. The names of the officials that have violated the law in the most heinous way are already known to the people, and it is now time for justice. The laws and regulations on how to run America are already in place. We don't need a new America. We need the original America. No lights will go out, no paychecks will stop, no banks will close, no networks will stop working, no people will be hurt unless they choose violent resistance. Remember, war is justice denied. Less than 1,500 elected or appointed people will be replaced, but billions of people will be saved. The only thing we lack is leadership. We need someone who sees the vision and to whom the U.S. military will answer to protect America from foreign enemies while we, the people, dispatch the domestic enemy. My only question is, are you ready? May God bless and protect America. All right, that's my centerpiece for tonight. Yeah, Rick Grimes would be good, sure. 11 trained guys can take out the grid in a medium-sized city. Not necessary. You don't need to damage infrastructure at all. 2 o'clock in the morning, you simply go and arrest them. And that's it. It's over. That's it. They don't speak. They don't make any calls. They don't make any emails. It's done. They're replaced. The states step forward with their replacements, and it's over. When the sun comes up, we have a totally different Congress. We have a totally different Senate. All the secretaries, all the cabinet heads, everybody's been replaced. Simple. Simple. You want to have special elections in 24 months, you can do that. But that's the way it needs to be done. All right. Let's change the subject and talk about black holes a little bit. Very interesting, very cool picture. I'm going to post this up here so you can see it. I mean, have you seen this mind-boggling release of the first image ever captured of a black hole? Wow. I mean, astronomers have done it again. And this is how the magnetic fields behave close to black holes. You can see how this light is just ripped around the gravity of this spinning black hole. Of course, they all spin to conserve momentum, of course. In 2019, the Event Horizon Telescope, which lies at the center of the M87 galaxy, 55 million light years from Earth, that's where this black hole is. The image showed a bright ring with a dark center, which is a black hole shadow. In capturing this image, astronomers noticed a significant amount of polarized light around the black hole. Now, the collaboration has revealed a new look at the black hole, showing what it looked like in polarized light. Polarized light waves have a different orientation and brightness compared with unpolarized light. And just like how light is polarized when it passes through some sunglasses, light is polarized when it's emitted with magnetized and hot areas of space. As polarization is a signature of magnetic fields, this image makes it clear that the black hole's ring is magnetized. This polarized view tells us the emission in the ring is most certainly produced by magnetic fields that are located very close to the event horizon, which is what we've been saying for a long time. In Chapter 2 of The Arc of Millions of Years, Volume 1, in a chapter called The Dimensions, we speak of the singularity of a black hole being a Heisenberg uncertainty instead of a tiny little speck in the middle of the giant black hole, which is where all the matter is. I think, that matter slings to the outside very close to the event horizon because it is spinning so quickly, like thousands of rounds per minute. And that is why we see this magnetized behavior. Monica, Masha Brodska, who's a coordinator of the EHD Polarimetry Working Group and assistant professor of Radboud Universiteit in the Netherlands, had this to say. This is the first time that astronomers have been able to measure polarization so close to the edge of a black hole. Not only is this new view of this black hole spectacular to look at, but the image is revealing new information about the powerful radio jets shooting from M87. In the first images, we showed intensity only. Now we add polarization information on top of that original image. The new polarized images mark important steps toward learning more about the gas near the black hole and in turn how black holes grow and launch jets. By the way, to capture the black hole, the collaboration used 8 telescopes from around the world, combining their power to create a virtual Earth-sized telescope, very similar to what I propose with the Global Telescope Network, only looking for near-Earth objects instead of black holes. The radio telescopes of the EHD have receivers that record the sky signal in polarized light. These polarized receivers work in a way similar to that of the polarized sunglasses that people use, as I said. Let's see here. Astronomers have long thought that these magnetic fields carried by the hot gas near black holes play an important part in letting the gas fall into the hole and in launching what we call relativistic jets of energetic particles out into the surrounding galaxy. We think that maybe these waves, this energy for supermassive spinning black holes, is actually the energy that lights up the galaxy. That's a lot of energy. It's a lot of power. A lot of power. The main finding is, she said, that we not only see the magnetic fields near the black hole as expected, but they appear to be very strong. Our results indicate that the magnetic fields can push the gas around and resist being stretched. The result is an interesting clue to how black holes feed on gas and how they grow. We still don't know all the details of how the jets are created, but we know that magnetic fields may play a critical role at different wavelengths of light to build a more complete picture of the black hole's surroundings and probe the magnetic fields in more detail. They're going to continue. Let's see, chat room. What do you got going here? Yes, Michelle is right. Please hit the like button, guys. It means a lot to YouTube. When we get a lot of likes, it means they move us to the interesting page when people log into YouTube. That's a good question. Scott says, I'm wondering if Ingenuity will be able to fly in the Martian atmosphere. Yes, it will. We're all going to watch it on April Fool's Day, April 1st. Ingenuity, which is part of the Perseverance mission, is going to fly. This is a thin atmosphere helicopter. It's very light, and it has counter-rotating blades, so it doesn't have to have the rotor in the back to keep it from spinning around and around. The blades counter-rotate, and it should fly remotely. And we're going to be able to see. I'm wondering if it's going to fly down to the face on Mars. That would be very cool, wouldn't it? I doubt it has that much range, but we'll see. And we watched yesterday and the day before for serial number 11. Serial number 11 is Starship, which is Elon Musk's stainless steel spaceship, which is down in Boca Chica, Texas. And Boca Chica, Texas is a very cool place. I think I would like to go down there and work for a while. I bet I could solve some quality problems they have down there. And we want to watch serial number 11. It didn't get to launch because of weather. It did do a static fire, which was kind of interesting to watch, where they fired the engines just to make sure they would ignite. And I think we should see serial number 11 fly this week. And it's going to be similar to serial number 10. It's going to go up to 10 kilometers. It's going to shut off the engines. It's going to start falling back down. It's going to do that flat kind of belly flop configuration where it breaks its downward velocity with wind resistance. And then it's going to do that swing where it fires the engines again, goes vertical, and then lands softly. So, what is it, David? April 1st is the anniversary of my retirement. Planned it that way. Retired from the corporate world April 1st, 2013. I mean, how do you like it, David? Because, you know, I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary, but I didn't retire. I'm still contracting, so I'm being called by another Fortune 500 company. They're expanding a plant about 25 minutes from me, and they're going to be adding some more assembly lines, and they want me to come down and help them do that. And I like doing it. I enjoy doing it. To me, it's not work. And, of course, it puts money in the bank, which I like because I want to finance my speaking career. It doesn't cost me much to sit here on the radio, about $4,000 a year. But public speaking is about 5 times as expensive. It's about $20,000 a year to go out and publicly speak. And I enjoy doing it. I enjoy meeting people, shaking hands, selling books, signing autographs. I enjoy all that. But it's expensive. It costs about $20,000 a year. And, of course, naturally, I'd like to sell enough books to offset that. But that never works out that way for 99% of the authors. Still, you know, if you don't go play the concerts, they're not going to buy the albums. That's the way it goes. And you have to go out and pay your dues in order to make that a reality. So now I have 11 books in print. And yes, to answer your question, there is a 12th book being written right now. 5 chapters are in the can. We are editing as we go this time, so it's a little bit slower. But I hope to have it done, ready to go to press by July 4th. That sound like a good date for you? It works for me. I'm in the chair every day. Always. I've been doing this for a long time. Been writing since I was 14 years old. So I'm a professional writer, which means I sit down to write every day. Sometimes it's a couple hundred words. Sometimes it's 20 pages. It just depends on how it flows. Right now we're in the process of developing several subplots. As you know, those of you that have read my books know there are a lot of subplots in the book. And that makes it interesting. It makes for good TV. It makes for a good story. And it's also difficult to do. The book outlines are very complex for these types of books. But I enjoy it. I get a lot out of it. And it's kind of a legacy because you leave some of yourself in print. And let's see how many pages I got left here. We got an hour to go. I don't know. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll ask you in the chat room if you would like to hear a chapter of a book. Let's see if I can, while we're at break with TFR, we'll see what we can pull up here, and we'll see. But I'm just asking you, if the majority of you want to hear something from one of the books, then we'll do that if you want to. Let's see. Shall we pick one of the exciting chapters from Birth, Volume 1? What do you think? You think that would be cool? That's a very fast-paced book. Very fast-paced book. I don't know. Let's see here. Yes, there we go. We'll open this one right here. Just have to make sure I'm taking the latest edition. Here we go. Yes. There's a couple votes for it. All right. We'll see what we can do. Everybody wants a chapter, so let's pick. Good. Let's see. One of the chase scenes would be fun, don't you think? One of the chase scenes be all right? I don't know. I'm just thinking it would be fun. All right. Yeah, we'll take a chase scene out of Birth, Volume 1. This is right after they break out and leave Kyle's garage. How about that? It's a good chase scene. In the purple dual turbocharged Challenger. I think that'd be a good scene, don't you think? We'll do that. We'll just do a quick read. These are small chapters in this book because it's so fast-paced. It's the first season of the TV series, and it goes so fast. You'll see. Anyway, I'm excited about it, too. It's been a while since I read this out loud. And, there's a lot of technical stuff in the book, and some people don't like it, but most people do. Here we go.
It's also up 77 cents since early November.
Industry analyst Troby Lundberg, publisher of the Lundberg Survey, is listing of Fox News.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Here we go. Final hour. Okay, by popular demand, we're going to read Chapter 11 from Birth Volume 1. Now, Birth Volume 1 is called Two Earths, One Race for Time, and it is a white-knuckle ride, to be sure. It was first written as a movie, a script for a movie in 2011, and I didn't know the first thing about funding a movie, so it just sat there and didn't do anything. But in 2015, when President Trump came down the escalator to run for president, it fulfilled part of what was in that screenplay. So I said, well, I can't let the script just sit there. So I pulled it out and I reread it. And I said, well, that's it. I have to turn this into a book. So I wrote Volume 1 as the book version of that movie. And it was wildly successful. I went on Coast to Coast, talked about it, sold 6,000-7,000 copies pretty quickly. And George Norrie asked me, so when are you going to write the sequel? When's the next one coming out? And this was in like July. And I said, well, I don't know, maybe next year I'll have it ready. And so I went to bed about 5 o'clock in the morning when I got off George's program. And I tossed and turned and woke up the next day and I said, I have to start on Volume 2. So I did. And it was out by Christmas. Literally 5 months, it was done. And it was huge. It was just huge. The story had taken on such dimension and such power, deep spiritual tones with action adventure and sci-fi and high espionage all wrapped into one. So that book got done, and the same thing happened. And only volume 3 was crazy how deep it got me. It pulled me in, and I wrote it, and we had it pretty much edited. I think we had it pretty much edited by October, and we were working on the cover and formatting and got those things ready, and we sent it to print right before Christmas. And in the meantime, this was 2017. In the meantime, Q began posting, and I didn't know who Q. I mean, I know what Q is, of course, but I never heard of them making any kind of post to the public. And it began coming out on this thing called 4chan or 8chan. Anyway, it began asking questions, and the Anons, which have been around for a long, long time, decades, these are anonymous people that they're just patriots, a lot of them, and some of them are not patriots, but they sort of make a life's goal out of anarchy, messing with people, messing with the establishment. And they're usually techies and hackers and whatever, programmers, antivirus people. And the Anons jumped on this Q person as a fake, and they tried to out him. They tried to say, you're not who you say you are. You're not on the inside. You can't have this information. And what ended up happening is they ended up proving that he was real. And instead of becoming the enemy of Q, they became the ally of Q. And it was evident what was happening. President Trump had a technical group that had been working with the military for quite some time. And now that he was the president-elect, there were the intelligence community was attacking the administration from the inside. They were hacking them. They were leaking. They were spying. It was unbelievable. And Q was being overwhelmed. They were getting their asses kicked. They were a small team, very close. And so they needed help. And they didn't have a budget. I mean, you don't just put ads in Craigslist and go hire tech support or tech army, so to speak. And so masterfully, they enlisted the Anons as allies, as researchers, as fake news outers, and they ended up matching wits with the intelligence community. And in a very short amount of time, Q had about 2 million of these tech wizards at his disposal, or her disposal. We're not exactly sure which Q was doing the posting, but Q is a Q clearance group of immense clearance, the highest clearance you can get. And so questions were being asked, and assignments were being given to the Anons, and the Anons were finding out this stuff. They were uncovering the information. An awakening began happening. Well, the crazy thing is that it was like following the book. It was like following the chapters in the book. One discovery after another after another. It was insane. So the two became kind of lifelike. It just drove me to try to stay ahead of them and get the book written and get it published. And that's what I did. So when that was done, I went and wrote the prequel, which is Charm a Favor, and I put a tiny little Q on the spine just to give an acknowledgement to them out there. So this is volume 1, and this is chapter 11. Now, what has happened up to this point is that Kyle Kramer, who is the autistic hacker friend of a former race car driver whose name is Richard Daring. And Richard Daring only has one eye because he lost the eye in a go-kart accident, racing go-karts some years before. And so now they're a street racing team. Well, they've been street racing online, doing this kind of gambling enterprise where they run races on the street and they get rich people from all over the world to gamble on the race. So they're making money and doing what they love doing, which is street racing. And they get themselves in trouble because Kyle, who's running second seat in the car, is hacking the traffic light system in order to give them free pass to do their racing, and then turning all the lights red behind them so the cops can't catch them, so they're able to effect their escape all the time. Well, Kyle makes a mistake and leaves one of the lights hung up in the traffic system, and they catch the footprint. So they trace it to Kyle's garage there in Pasadena on Colorado Boulevard, and the cops have now come to arrest them. And they escape. They go busting out of there, and they are racing down Colorado Boulevard, and this is where the chapter picks up. I-15 is coming up. We're going east, remember, said Kyle as he glanced up from his laptop. They were still going about 180 miles an hour, but the Foothill Freeway, I-210, was one of the smoothest stretches of road in Southern California. Okay, shut the nitrous off. I'm letting off to make this turn, said Dick as he flexed his hands from gripping the steering wheel for the last 20 minutes. Nitrous off. Exhaust temperatures are around 850. Pretty good. I'm happy, said Kyle. I think I can make this turn at 100. The tires were hot and able to grip the road with only a slight sound of breaking loose as the two-lane interchange was negotiated. It's all uphill from here, so watch your exhaust temperatures, said Kyle. I think it can take 1200. Not for very long. The blades are aluminum. Relax, I'll keep it under 150. I'm just saying, we don't want to melt anything. How are you feeling, Kyle? I'm good. I'm hungry. We still have some Slim Jims at the shed, right? Screw a bunch of Slim Jims. I want a burger or something. You'll last. My mom's old Riviera is at the shed. We'll go to Victorville for supper. What do you say? Yeah, I'm down. I hope they don't have a statewide warrant for us. Yeah, well, the government has bigger fish to fry, I'm hoping. Hey, that reminds me. See if our deposit from last night is in the bank yet. Hold on. Crap. No network here. We're in the boonies. Hold on. I'll use the cell. While you're looking, I just want to say thank you. You did a great job back there. I nearly got us busted. I can't believe I left that light latched. Yes, it's in. Nice. $55,450. That will help us finish the fuel project. Or buy a new truck. We need a truck. Oh, come on. That coupled nitrous is almost a fuel by itself. I have 2 tanks left. Oh, yeah. Where are those tanks, by the way? Asked Dick. Right where we left them, in the shed, next to the filter. Cool. All right, chapter 12. Let's see. We're talking about a helicopter, a special helicopter that has left Pasadena City College. It has on it special agents, Secret Service agents Smith and Jones, and the group from Caltech. This would be Bette Dyson. This would be Loretta, who is the professor, and Rhino. All right. We're 10 minutes out, sir. Smith reached forward to touch Bette's knee. Her eyes opened. She had dozed off during the 30-minute flight from Pasadena to Victorville. The airstrip was in sight, and the helicopter was diving along the east side of the San Bernardino Mountains to stay on the deck. The pilot was flying rather than using the ALS because of the passengers. At that speed, passengers would be screaming if the ALS was controlling the altitude. He could make it smoother and still stay below Edwards Air Force Base radar. It's time to get ready to transfer to the jet. We're heading for Camp David, said Smith. Are we going to see the president there? Asked Loretta. You have been requested to be there and ready to explain your thesis. My thesis? You mean on planetary core structure? Actually, it's the part you left out of the thesis they're most interested, said Jones. Why? She got a look on her face like someone had just seen through her hidden thesis behind her published version. Has there been an event? Smith and Jones looked at each other for a moment. Let's just say you were the only geologist whose theory accommodated empirical data, said Jones. Empirical data? What empirical data? Jesus, will somebody please tell me what's going on? That's all we are authorized to say. We're not there yet, said Smith. Sir, we have a minor problem, said the pilot over the intercom. Smith leaned forward to the pilot's seat to look out the front glass. Down below on the strip was the white G7 government jet sitting right where they had left it. Next to the jet was parked a purple Dodge Challenger. Back to the Challenger. Oh, I'm glad we're here. My butt is numb, said Kyle. As they came around the gate to the abandoned airstrip where they tested their fastest ideas, far from the prying eyes of other street racers, they both were shocked. There, sitting in dazzling glory, was a brand new G7 private jet. That is really bigger than I thought one would be, said Dick. That's a what kind of plane? That's a G7. Very expensive. Those winglets and the extra center tank means it's a transcon version. Transcon? Able to go across the pond. Long-range version. Maybe 8,000 miles. Dick whistled. How much does one of those run? Depends on the electronics, but I'd say at least 10 million. Okay. So tell me why a $10 million jet is sitting on our runway with nobody around. Kyle laughed as he unbuckled his harness and opened the passenger door. He slid his laptop under the seat and stepped onto the tarmac. It was cracked concrete, but relatively smooth. The whole place looked like a scene out of Duke Nukem, but they'd made good use out of the old abandoned airstrip with an 11,000-foot runway. Isn't possession 9/10 of the law? Yeah, nice try, Your Honor. I think that little wreath on the door might say something. Dick leaped out and ran over to where the air stairs would come down. I make this to be the United States Secret Service. You started to back away in a slight state of panic. You started to look around for a sniper somewhere. Hey, Kyle, what is that? What is what? That. Dick pointed to the north at the small black craft coming straight for them about 100 feet off the ground like a bat out of hell. Shit. I don't know. Shit. Okay. That is a Black Hawk attack helicopter. Run. They both ran for the short tower room. This airstrip never had an active tower. It was for test pilots and training during the Korean War and was used during the Vietnam era. It was faded white concrete to keep the brutal desert sun from roasting the people inside. Once the sun hit the mountains in the late afternoon, it was quite nice. The upper desert would cool down to a comfortable and dry 80 degrees even in the summer. As they reached the door, the black craft was on them. It was so fast and so quiet and never fired a shot. It quickly landed, and 2 men in suits came running out toward the building. United States Secret Service, shouted Smith. Show your hands and come out slowly. Kyle and Dick emerged from the old building like they'd been caught trespassing on an abandoned amusement park. Hey, guys. Nice jet, said Dick. Who are you? Asked Jones, holding his jacket open so he could reach his firearm. Hey, I'm Richard Daring, and this is my partner in crime, Kyle Kramer, said Dick. I said crime. I meant he's my technician. He's an engineer, sort of. Richard Daring. Dick Daring? Asked Bet, running up behind the two agents. The race car driver? Yep, that would be me. Why? Guys, this is Dick Daring. He's world famous. Well, he was, said Bet. She was jealous, sort of. She always wanted to drive race cars, but settled for riding Harleys instead. Judging from the scar and patch over Dick's right eye, she'd made the right decision. So far. What are you doing here? Asked Smith. What are we doing here? What are you doing here? Squeaked Kyle. He had been silent on the edge of panic up to this point. This is our airstrip. Well, we use it to test cars for a long time now. You're trespassing, he said, pointing his freckled finger at Smith from 20 feet away. So we are, said Smith. So we are. We actually need to be leaving now, so we would appreciate it if you didn't know we were here. Where? Said Dick. I didn't see anything. Did you see anything, Kyle? Me? Nope. Rhino, put the boxes in the tail cargo area, please, said Jones without turning around. He still didn't trust these two. He did look at the car, though. Nice car. Thanks, they both said at once. Sir, we need 10 minutes to pre-flight, said the pilot of the helicopter, who was now preparing to fly the jet. You have 5, said Smith. The 2 uniformed men turned with their clipboards and began checking the plane. One opened the door and dropped the air stairs. He slipped up the stairs and into the plane. What are you guys doing out here? Well, we sort of had to get out of town fast, and we used this strip to test cars. We have a lab and some equipment here, back here in this bungalow, said Dick. What kind of lab? Asked Jones. He was curious. These two looked like grease monkeys, but they didn't sound like one. We experiment with magnetically aligned nitrous oxide for enhanced fuel systems, blurted out Kyle while looking around at Dick. He hoped he wasn't giving anything away, but it was the Secret Service, and they did ask. The co-pilot emerged from the cabin slightly. Sir, we have a problem. Report, please, ordered Smith. There is chatter from Edwards. They're scrambling 2 A-10s. Sir, they have launch codes. Rhino, are those boxes aboard? Yelled Jones. Yes, sirs, said Rhino. A-10s? Hold on, stuttered Kyle. He ran for the Dodge and retrieved his laptop. Hey, I'm still up. Give me a second. His hands flew over the keyboard, and in a few seconds he yelled out, I got him. You got what? Remember we talked about specifics, said Dick. A-10s. They're old. I hacked one once. I can hack their flight deck, said Kyle. Sir, we have to go low and fast to stay under radar, but we have to fly right over Edwards for the shortest route, said the pilot as he walked up with his electronic clipboard. What about going over them? Asked Smith. Our ceiling is 55,000 in this jet. Edwards controls all the way up. Up to where? Well, all the way, sir. Why can't you go higher? Asked Bet. Oxygen. There's no oxygen. Engines flame out, spouted Kyle. Basically, that's right, said the pilot. I can fix that. I can make this work, said Kyle as he began tapping on his laptop again. Dick, the engines are GE, right? Let me check, said Dick, running to the front of the port engine. Yes, General Electric, it says here. I can do this. We have the stuff. Can you fit 2 bottles in the cargo hold? There's plenty of room in there, said Rhino. Come on, come with me, said Dick. The group ran to the bungalow about 50 yards away. Dick spun the combination and opened the roll-up door. There were about 20 bottles of various types of compressed gas. These 2, get these 2. Careful, they're heavy, said Dick. Here's a dolly. Rhino grabbed the dolly and began wheeling the 2 bottles toward the jet's ready cargo hold. What size jets? Dick shouted out the door at Kyle. No jets. Grab the 3/8 lines, squeaked Kyle, and get the drill. Dick grabbed the coils of 3/8-inch stainless steel lines and the proper compression unions and solenoids to make up the injection system. He was mapping the system in his mind, but the bulk of the work had to be done inside Kramer's crazy brain. Too little and the engine floods and flames out. Too much and they turn into a pretty firework in the sky. We're going to need a battery, too. The jet runs on 24-volt system, said Kyle. Hey, Bet, grab that deep cycle battery over there. He didn't know why he asked her to get the battery. Something just told him by looking at her that she wouldn't say no. She didn't. They all headed for the jet. Grab a ladder, will you? Dick pointed to Jones. Within 20 minutes, they had the bottles jammed into the back of the jet along with the battery for the solenoids and a spool of wire to make the connection inside the cabin. Dick drilled a hole through the side of the outer skin and routed the stainless steel line through the hole. The pipes fed directly through the side of the engine cases just behind the compressor of each motor. Kyle was still jamming away on the laptop, which he had now transferred into a swivel seat in the cabin of the G7. Hey, guys, we have an update, yelled Kyle. I'm into the flight deck of the A-10s. They have no orders. What? Asked Smith. They have no orders. They're climbing out, and that's the end of the string. But they have launch codes for 2 Hellfire missiles each. Hellfires? Damn. They plan on catching us on the ground. This is standard tactical protocol. No orders until you're airborne. We have to leave, people, said Smith. What do you mean, people? We're not going, said Dick, pointing back and forth to Kyle and him. If you don't go, you die. Understand? Why? What do we do? You saw. You die. You go with us, you have a chance of living, said Smith. Well, since you put it like that, I guess we're going with you. Hand me that line wrench, will you? Guys, they're rolling. Canopies up, said Kyle. Sir, we have completed our pre-flight. We're ready, said the pilot to Smith. Turning to recheck the cargo area, Dick and Rhino came crawling out, noticing the stainless steel line coming out of a neat hole in the outside skin and going into the engine casing. The pilot shouted, What the hell did you just do? Facing Smith, he said, Sir, I have no idea how this will affect the aircraft. Don't worry about it, Cap, said Dick. Everything is under control. Oh, yeah? Whose control? His, said Dick, pointing to Kyle, chewing on a pencil while flying over the keyboard of his laptop. Okay, let's go, said Smith. They bounded up the air stairs and hauled in and secured the door. Spool up, men. We're wheels up in 1 minute. Sir, I do not have the flight plan into the computer yet. We'll have to do it once we're airborne, said the co-pilot. There's weather or something. I can't get a clean arrival time, no matter what I do. Okay, we'll do it in the air. Take off and head east, said Smith. East? We can't go east. That'll put us on an intercept course with Edwards, said the pilot. Sit down and belt in, people. We're rolling, ordered Smith. The engines began spooling up, and the jet rolled forward to taxi to the south end of the runway. There would be no clearance needed. This was truly visual flight rating. By the seat of your pants, combat-style flying, until they got out of range of the A-10s. Still, the G7 had to roll nearly a mile to the south to be able to take off, and there was plenty of foreign material like sticks and tumbleweeds along the way, so the engines had to be kept at low speed to prevent vacuuming up something into the engine. Besides, blowing a tire by running over a sharp edge of old concrete would also be a disaster. Those A-10s are closed cockpits now. They're launching, said Kyle. How does he know that? Asked the co-pilot. He hacked their flight deck, said the pilot. Wow, that came up sudden, didn't it? We'll read right through the break. Captain, if we take off and stay close to the mountains going north, we could make it to Palmdale and get lost in the commercial traffic. That's a good idea. We could stay on the deck over Los Angeles National Forest right here and then bank east along 14. It's possible. Just then, Smith poked his head into the cockpit. Here's the deal. Those A-10s have armed Hellfire missiles, heat seekers. They also have 30mm cannons which can rip this plane like paper mache. The only thing they can't do is climb. They're slow and heavy like a flying trash can. We have to make sure they can't get an angle on us. And how do we do that? We have mountains to the west, Lancaster to the north, and the only opening we have here is along 14 to 18. They have an angle no matter how fast we fly. We can do about 375 at this altitude, said the pilot. If those A-10s get airborne now, there is no way we can make it, said the co-pilot. Okay, stuttered Kyle, as his brain came out of hacker mode. He twisted his reddish blonde hair in his left hand while his right hand brushed across the pad of his laptop. Here's your flight plan, yelled Kyle from his swivel chair through the open cockpit door. The pilot looked back at his flight deck. What the hell? What is this? He yelled over his shoulder. Smith winced as the pilot yelled right in his face. It's the flight plan. We can beat the A-10s and the Hellfire missiles if we follow this plan. I'm pretty sure, said Kyle sheepishly. This ain't no video game, kid. This jet cannot fly like this. This plan makes us fly straight up. We can't go vertical. It can now, said Dick. Just do it. We will stall and fall back to the ground. I don't feel like dying today, said the pilot. I was looking over his shoulder, sir, said Jones. He's way too fast for me, but I think it might work. Jesus Christ. The co-pilot directed the plane onto the end of the runway. 11,500 feet of runway, wide enough to launch a B-52 straight in front of them. He held the brakes so the plane stopped rolling. Their wheels up, sir, said the co-pilot. Okay, here we go. Get in your seats, you two. He picked up the mic. Make sure I'm not. Got about 5 seconds to bring TFR back in. We'll make it. We'll make it. Are you with me? Are you with me? With me, without me. With me, without me. Ready? Here we go.
Break free of the fear.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Okay, here we go. Get in your seats, you two. He picked up the mic. We're firewalling it. He had not flown this way since flying cargo runs out of Riyadh in 1991. 6,000 hours to end up like this. Dick and Kyle looked at each other as the jet lurched forward like a sports car. It was off the ground in less than 3,000 feet and wheels up. 200, 250. Pull back, said the pilot. Together they worked the yoke of the plane. They had practiced 60-degree elevations coming off the runway lots of times. They had never done 90 degrees before. We're not fast enough, sir. Hold on. 300, 330, 350. That's good. We're at 6,000 now. 400. Holy shit. What is that? That's not them. What is that? Spat the pilot over the DCs. That's a news helicopter. Evasive right. Hold on. The pilot and co-pilot pulled back even more and guided the plane in a hard roll to the right. Whoa. We went right. He went right. That guy has combat experience. Very quick. We're clear, said the pilot. The plane came back to the center and was now climbing at a 75-degree angle. Sir, 2 bogeys at 320, said the co-pilot. I got 'em. They have an angle. They have an angle. They're going to fire. Go, 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 wished the co-pilot. Now would be a good time, hacker boy, shouted the pilot. Pull up, 3, 2, 1, go, shouted Kyle as he pressed the F8 key. At that moment, the 2 jets released 4 Hellfire missiles. They dropped like bricks until the propellant ignited. They were AGM-114 heat seekers capable of reaching a speed of 950 miles an hour in level flight. The G7 could fly at nearly the speed of sound in level flight, but they were still climbing. They were practically vertical now, slowing down as time went on. The plane did not have enough thrust to go straight up and accelerate at the same time. Kyle, asked Dick. Hold on. Kyle, hold on. I couldn't do anything until they dropped. Hold on. I'm going to have to dive to pick up airspeed. We're going to... Holy mother of God, said the pilot as he gripped the yoke with all his might. The plane's GE engines were being doused with magnetized nitrous oxide. This mixed perfectly with the clean Jet A kerosene fuel and produced a beautiful blue afterburning behind the jet. The passengers squeezed back in their seats while they gripped their armrests. 400, sir. 500. 650. 750. Mach 1.1. Mach 1.2. Mach 1.5. Settling out, sir. We just passed 50,000 feet. Stay vertical. Follow the flight plan. We have about 3 more minutes of boost, said Kyle. The oxygen mask dropped out of the ceiling. Nearly panicking, each person grabbed for a mask and put it on. The co-pilot was not so lucky. His mask fell behind him as they were pointed straight up. Within 15 seconds, he was unconscious. We're at 75,000 feet and still climbing. We're safe. I'm nosing over for level flight, said the pilot over the mic. No, shouted Kyle. If you do that, we'll explode. I can't turn the nitrous off. It has to run out. 100,000 feet. Hey, we're stalling. I need some help here. Dick released his belt as the plane began to feel very strange. He floated free of his seat and launched weightlessly toward the cockpit. He's out. He needs oxygen or he'll die, said the pilot. Kyle popped his harness loose and grabbed his weightless body and threw it back toward Rhino. Get a mask on him and belt him in. You the man, shouted Rhino through his oxygen mask. He grabbed the weightless co-pilot with one arm and slammed him onto the seat next to him. He attached the seatbelt and put the dangling oxygen mask over his unconscious face. Oh, my God, said Loretta. Look. She hadn't made a sound during this entire flight, but now she was looking out the window of this jet from 100,000 feet. She could see the curvature of the earth. She could see the curvature of 2 earths. One was holographic looking, but it was separating from the white and blue planet they called home. Her thesis was right. There were 2 earths, one vibrating at a much higher frequency than the other. They were in harmony for the most part for more than 5,000 years. But now, just as her measurements and calculations had predicted, they were becoming dissident. The 2 worlds were going to come apart. It was like the planet was dying, just like a human body dies. The physical part is temporal and slow and solid. The spiritual part was fast, and as part she could tell, eternal. The planet called Earth was a living thing. Dick had the best view for a moment. The enhanced optics out the cockpit windows made the picture absolutely stunning. He couldn't blink. It was beautiful. Wow, was all that came out of his mouth. I know this is awesome and everything, but we have a serious problem, said the pilot. He had the yoke wrapped over the right as far as it would go, and he pushed it all the way forward. The plane, however, was beginning to fall backwards and spin to the left. Slowly, the altimeter began spinning. We've got almost no airspeed. We're going into a flat spin. These jets glide like a brick. I need some help with this elevator. Help me push this down. Dick grabbed the yoke. Felt like a steering wheel. 2 pedals. One goes right, one goes left. What does this one do? He asked. That's the landing gear. Don't touch that. And this? Reversers. The engine cowl redirects the jet blast to slow the plane down once it touches down. Leave that alone, or you'll kill us all. And these? The engine throttles. Come on now, help with this, or we're going to spin out of control. The plane was dropping fast at about 2,000 feet a minute, 2,500. Once the stratospheric air began moving over the wings backwards, there would be no correcting it. They would spin so fast they would pass out. The plane would shatter under the stress. Dick grabbed the wheel hard and pushed it left into the spin. He reached forward and dropped the landing gear and then opened the reverse cowls on both engines. All that was remained to was, yes, the pedals. Pushed the right one all the way to the floor. The plane rolled upside down. The horizon came back into view and disappeared over the top of the cockpit window. Throttles. He reached for the throttles and shouted to the pilot, "Light it up! Light it up!" The pilot pushed the globe plug switches to light the engines. The compressors began turning. They could hear the ignition of the port engine, and the light went green on the flight deck. "We have engine 1, said the pilot. Dick centered the yoke and pulled back slightly. He let up on the pedals and let them come to the center with the rudder. He closed the reversers and raised the landing gear. "We have number 2. Throttle up. 450, 550, 750. Okay. We have to level out and glide a little. These aren't made to fly too much past Mach 1. They both sat there for a moment. They realized at the same time that they were going to live. The plane was saved. "Come around to 320. We're going to Camp David," said the pilot. "How did you know how to do that? I never faced that before." Dick turned his face to meet the pilot's and pointed to his patched eye. "Try crashing every night," he said flatly. Well, that's an example of the white knuckle ride in Birth, Chapter 1. All right, the IQ is sliding again. There's a new study out of Norway that indicates technically their IQs are shrinking to the tune of about 7 IQ points per generation. Scientists from Norway's Ragnar Frisch Center for Economic Research analyzed 730,000 IQ tests given to Norwegian men before compulsory military service from 1970 to 2009. And this is their conclusion. If the trend continues, indeed, if it is even real, that means about 10 generations from now, we'll see a slow decline that actually means IQs at the top end will drop from just above 130, very superior, to less than 69, which is extremely low. That's kind of terrifying, isn't it? It's a reversal of what's known as the Flynn effect, named after the psychologist who first noticed that IQs increased in at least the first part of the 20th century. They are a host of potential explanations that are still being explored, all the way from environmental problems to diet to lack of exercise and staring at screens. But one that actually seems a more genuine culprit is this. IQ tests are designed to rely more upon rote memorization, whereas schools and even electronics devices used by students rely on the ability to find things via Google and other means, which may indicate there's no real change in intelligence, but rather in how younger people learn these days. However, the scientists Bernd Bratsberg and Ole Rogeberg have written a paper making the strong case that the decrease is environmental, and one of them actually talks about the IQ test possibility. I've often said in this program before, Google I am. We didn't have Google in those days. You had to learn stuff, you had to remember it, and then you had to be able to recall it. And that's why I learned how to do what I call transitory memory. This is where you take memories and you copy them over into different aspects of your brain, into music, into art, into architecture, into different subjects so that you can access them at a whim. So, yes, I have had my IQ tested more times than most people because of who I am and what I do, but it's high. Yeah, you like that? Authentic Existence says, awesome. Yeah, that's a good chapter, a good series of chapters right there. The whole book is like that. I mean, you just latch into it on the first chapter, and you don't let go until the last chapter, and it flies. It's a 200-mile-an-hour book, and it's a big screen movie. It's all together. So many chase scenes, you can't believe it. Science and spirituality. The tension between science and religion is old news to most people. Historical events like the Catholic Church's trial of Galileo or the Scopes monkey trial over teaching Darwin in schools seems to imply that religion and science are incompatible. More recently, writers like Richard Dawkins and Daniel Dennett and, of course, me have been vigorous in their condemnation of the anti-scientific bias of religious fundamentalism. But if we take a broader view beyond these, let's just call them fundamentalisms, if we ask about the human inclination towards spiritual practice in general, do we still have to find the same antagonism? The answer is, I would say no. I would say you're beginning to see science and spirituality begin to intertwine once again. Now, it's important to distinguish between religion and what we'll call spiritual practice. There's a book out called Sapiens by an author whose name is Yuval Noah Harari. And he defines religion as a system of human norms and values that is founded in the belief in a superhuman order. There are two parts of this definition that are important for our discussion. First is the system of human norms. That changes all the time. Okay? It points to a lot of stuff, and it even crosses into politics. In fact, I've often said politics is the mechanism of religion. And there's an aspect of organized religion that has always been about establishing and enforcing these social norms. And that's basically what politics is all about. But the second part of Harari's definition refers to a superhuman order. Now, he doesn't say supernatural order because some religions like Buddhism don't pivot around the existence of an all-powerful deity. And this distinction is important because it allows you to see a point many scholars of religion have made after looking at the long human history of what I'll call the spiritual endeavor. And religionists and scientists are all about this. You know, from our beginnings as hunter-gatherers, we've always been responding to a sense of this superhuman order. That response has taken many forms, from beautiful paintings on cave walls to music, to other things. Now, you know, my books take history and put you in the middle of it with fictional characters. You live it, you sense it, you feel it, you're affected by it. And that's what science was to me. An order expressible in mathematics beyond the purely human. In fact, many of my deepest experiences of being alive had come to me through science, through scientific exploration, and in trying to understand the complexities of it. Working through, math or some image of the nebula or the galaxy, I'd get these overwhelming spiritual feelings. And it didn't just humble me, it integrated me with the spirit of logic and the spirit of science and proof. Now, one could say that my experiences were just, the awe of seeing the Orion Nebula, for instance, and nothing more. But as, we'll see, there's a certain sacredness to it. There's a certain order and scope to it that you realize that this didn't happen randomly, that there was some design or designs behind it. And that maybe even we participate in that design in some form or another. Maybe a wish, maybe our observation is what slowed the universe down so that we could behold it. Otherwise, the whole thing would still be at the speed of light, and we wouldn't see anything because distance would be zero or time would be zero because everything would be local. And to speak about sacredness of things is to understand that, some experiences are just beyond explanation. They're not what you would consider expected. They're hyper expectation. They're above expectations. And so they expand your understanding. And I think that sometimes people get lost in this expansion. And by that I mean that they feel insignificant. They feel like they don't count, or that they're too small, or that they don't affect things, and everything is moving around them and they have no effect on it at all. But what I've tried to do in my writing and my teaching, and what I'm trying to do here on this program, is to inform you that you are very significant and that you do have an effect on all these things. Just your presence in the equation is an effect. And yes, you can sit around and meditate about it all the time and consider it. And you can even realize that in some cases you're pushed around by it. But when you realize that you have the power to consciously change your input to the mathematical equation that is the universe, and you make a conscious decision to do so, then in an individual way you become a co-creator. And that you can use that co-creative responsibility and capability in a pattern of inputs at specific times over and over again in a repetitious way, over at least 8 iterations of it. You achieve this sort of Fibonacci significance. That is to say, what was just 2 energies added together to get a third, you now take the third and you add the iteration to it, and within 8 iterations you are now increasing at the golden mean, 1.618 to 1. And we know that this rate of increase is spontaneously, constructively interfering. In other words, the next effort is going to get much easier because it's coming around again on the peak, and you're just tapping it at the right moment. It's called being in the zone, whether you're a professional golfer, a baseball player, a real estate investor, or whatever it is you do with your life, whether you're playing music or you're creating art, or you watch people that have been doing this for a while and have reached this zone, and you just throw up your hands. I can't do that. Look at that skill. Look at that balance. Look at that speed. Look at that coordination. I can't do that. No, you probably can't. Not with 1 try or 2 or 3. But after 8 tries of continuously improving, you can definitely see a difference. When I used to coach Little League, I used to take like the 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and at first, here they're in the 3rd grade or the 4th grade. They can't swing a bat very fast. They don't have a throwing ability that's developed. Forget about picking up a grounder or anything like that at the beginning of the season. They can barely catch a ball in the glove. It hits the glove and falls on the ground, or they're chasing some butterfly in the outfield. But the improvement in 8 games that these little kids play, you can see as coach the improvement in the way they play and their excitement at their ability to play the game, their awareness of what's going on. Now, some of this is coach pitch. The guys, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, they don't throw the ball at the player behind the plate. We'd have a lot of black eyes. The coach pitches the ball, the batter hits it, the pitcher plays the defensive position, but the coach gets out of the way once the ball's hit and just, tells the kids what to do. In the first couple of games, you're going, wow, this is, they're so far from being able to be baseball players. But you practice on the fundamentals of picking up grounders, throwing the ball, swinging the bat, sliding into plate, the fundamentals of the game. And by the 8th game, it's not the same team. it humbles me to the dust to see these third graders and fourth graders pick up on the game. They're so much better after 8 games than they were when they started. And it's just the repetition. You only get them for an hour, every other day. Maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays you practice, and Saturdays you have a game. That's it. But in 8 games, they're so amazingly better. Of course, you can see the difference in some of the players. They just have natural talent. They have a good body to weight ratio. They have long limbs. They have quick reflexes. They're natural runners. There is a difference. But as a team, they play the ball. They play the game so much better. And how many times have you been placed in a job or taken a class where you kind of felt like that little leaguer? Here you got this book in physics or calculus or biology or psychology in your hands that you just paid $100 for. You're in a class with a guy that's taught this class 50 times. He knows every lesson plan inside and out. And he goes at you at what seems like 60 miles an hour, and you're walking. And you don't think you're ever going to get it. You don't think you're going to understand it. But what'll happen as you apply yourself, as you add the energy over and over again, you get better and better at those things. And that's what we do. That's what we do with our lives. That's what we do with our relationships with one another. Good marriages and good relationships take hard work. They take not sacrifice. Don't ever sacrifice for each other. That's the wrong way to go. You contribute to each other. You grow with each other. The sum of the two of you become greater than just the two of you separate, added together. So it's the combination that counts. And when we look for the good in others and help it to grow every single day, I don't care if it's just one person a day, one person a week, you can change the planet. You can actually change the planet. That's the whole reason X Squared Radio exists. X Squared, every number that comes out of that function is positive. And that's what we try to do here. That's why it's called X Squared Radio and not the Brooks Agnew Show. It'll never be called the Brooks Agnew Show. But follow me on social media. Don't forget to sign up to Telegram and follow me on Telegram. That is an exploding platform right now. And don't forget, this is America Free Radio. My name is Brooks Agnew. And I'm saying we can do this. We can do this together. I need you to tell your friends about this program. Get them to watch the YouTubes. Get them to watch the recordings. Come and participate live with us and be part of the chat room. And remember, I want you to have peace, Earth Explorers. Remember that you are source. Everything you do will eventually affect the universe. So do it on purpose. Every Wednesday, every Sunday at 8, we'll see you right here on America Free Radio. Thank you so much for being part of the program tonight. Thanks for participating in the chat room. And thank you so much to the people who contributed on Top Chat.